what was the process that you broke down to bring it back to more normal levels for yourself of feeling more peace, groundedness, calm?
Okay, so it's the process of the neurocycle. Excellent question. It's the process of the neurocycle, which it's in the second half of the book. So the neurocycle is
This is the 5 steps, right?
Yeah, this is the 5 steps. This is what I initially developed for people with traumatic brain injury. It was my first time that I developed it and developed my theory. And then from there, I refined it to all the different types of situations I worked with, and then it's been refined over the years. This is the most updated research. So a good scientist should keep learning and changing and improving, which is what I've tried to do. So in this book is the updated version of the neurocycle. The neurocycle is how you get your mind, which is always working, under control. If in a state of acute trauma, like I was in that moment, acute trauma creates a red brain. I showed you that picture of a red brain. That red brain means that I have a tidal wave in my brain going on, or that there is the left and the right brain will be out of harmony. I'll have a drop of blood and oxygen to the front of my brain. I'm going to have things like the delta. We've heard of things like delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. All those waves are supposed to flow like waves in the sea. And if you think of the sea, you've got the big swells, which is delta, slightly smaller swells, which is theta, then they build, which is beta, the crest, which is high beta, and the gamma, which is the ripple on the beach. And so we want that through the brain in this nice kind of even way. That's kind of the Y state. X plus Y. X is what happens to us. Y is that state. So X happens and then that Y state gets thrown off. So in that moment, that's what happened to me. So what we want to do is, because mind works through brain and body, and mind is experiencing this trauma, which is a mess, our brain and body just do what the mind's doing. So then there's a mess in our brain and our body. But if I have that kind of chaos, I can't think straight. Right. I'm not going to have any wisdom. I'm going to fall apart. And in this situation, I would have. And I have in the past, but now I've learned how to deal with this. Sure. And I talk about there that this neurocycle can improve how you manage anxiety and depression by 81%. That's a massive claim, and I've shown it scientifically. Okay, so what I did was to try and get myself back under control. Now, in that state, you don't know what to do in a tremendously acute traumatic state. But I knew from my science and from my knowledge, so I'm proactive, so I could go into 2 zones. So I went into 2 modes. The one mode was the mental mess that I was in, which is the pilot, because I'm driving. I'm in this time. Imagine yourself being in a helicopter that's like a time capsule. And you're flying over this forest, and the forest is your mind with all these trees. And this acute trauma has just grown because it's instant. So here's this terrible, and your helicopter's drawn to this because you are in shock and terror and fear and deep panic and anxiety. That is all the smoke signals. So my pilot's going like this. The co-pilot is also me, but it's my wisdom, because inside of each of us is our survival. And that's our instinct. That, when you give someone great advice and you just think, oh wow, where did that come from? Or you get that, it's that depth. Like we know what we know how much we can handle. We'll say, I know this, that kind of thing. That's the co-pilot, this wisdom. So what we want to do in those states is to get ourselves into the co-pilot. Remember the co-pilot and the pilot, and you use the you language. So here you flying this plane all over, and the co-pilot saying, okay, let's calm down, let's land it at that tree. So you land the plane, you land this time capsule, whatever, and you get out, but you're with the co-pilot, so you're safe. So you've created a distance, and this is, I'm explaining in detail, and obviously you train, and it's all in the book, and I've got an app that explains it too, but this is the mindset that I have trained myself to come into, so I can go into an acute trauma in that mind. I'm still crying, I'm still freaking out.
Right.
But I'm freaking out in this zone where I now know, because I know that I need wisdom. I need to be able to tap into that, and I cannot get through this chaos, if this chaotic brain and body and mind, unless I've calmed it down. So I have to get through this, because I'm stuck in that black tree and I'm stuck in this chaotic brain. So
would that be considered like fight or flight, whether it's someone cutting you off in front of you on the street, in the car, or someone yelling at you, or someone, whatever, an event's happening which is causing you to react in fight or flight, whether it's a massive T trauma or little T trauma,
exactly, right? Exactly, or an acute trauma, which is the blindsiding stuff, the stuff we don't expect that just hits us out the blue. Yes, absolutely. So you're going into a level of fight and flight. So everything physiologically, 1,400 neurophysiological responses are activated to help you focus. But they can't work for you unless you do what I'm telling you to do, which is to shift your perception. So this is the how-to, because as soon as you shift your perception in an instant, because I told you within seconds I brought the glucose monitor down. And I mean, I didn't even expect it to work that fast. I was amazed. And as it cycled through the 12 hours of the trauma, I was able to manage it more and more. So, I mean, it really, and this is not the first time, I've done this my whole life, but it was just so interesting seeing it in real time.
Sure.
And seeing the reaction. Okay, so
step one is to get the co-pilot state of mind to land the plane.
That's the preparation. We haven't even got to step one. So there's preparation.
So land the plane first.
Yeah, so that's it. So recognize that you remember there's a co-pilot, which is your wise mind, you the crazy pilot going all over the place, land the plane. Let the co-pilot tell you, okay, land the plane. And you land the plane where you need to, which is at the issue. And what drew you into land the plane to find the issue was your emotional. So this is step one. You're going to gather awareness. And gather means you controlling it. You're not sitting under the apple tree and all the apples are hitting you on the head. You are standing back and you're picking the apple. So there's control, there's a sense of autonomy, a sense of agency. So in the midst of chaos, you can create agency mentally because your mind's driving it. So you stand back and you say, okay, I picked that apple. So that's my emotional warning signals, terror, despair, utter, totally traumatized, like whatever they are. You pick those apples, you put them in your baskets, you're gathering. Then you gather awareness.
So this is gathering kind of your
awareness.
This is how I'm feeling, this is what's happened, this is the event.
Yes, this is gathering. It's almost, yes, it is, but you're gathering in 4 little distinct packages because the more organized you are, the less chaos. We're being very systematic.
So what are those four things?
So you gather awareness of your emotional warning signals, so the despair, anxiety, whatever, panic attack. Then you gather awareness of your physical bodily response. So here's your co-pilot saying, okay, how are you feeling? Gather that apple. What is your physical? Fluttering in the heart, panic attack, tension, gut-wrenching, adrenaline, whatever flight and fright freeze mode you're in. Then your behaviors. What are you saying? What are you doing?
How are you responding?
Yeah, action. Yeah, what you saying? What are you doing? What is actually happening? And I'm grabbing this, I'm grabbing that, get this, get that. So what is that and is it working? I mean, just doing this changes how you do things. It's amazing. You immediately go into this different mode. Fourth one is perspective. What's your perspective? This is doomed. This is terrible. This is sucks. This is end. Or, okay, this is bad, but. So gather. Then as soon as you've got those, you then go into reflect. So it's very systematic. And then as you've gathered and done all this preparation thing, you've got the two sides of the brain. We've got coherence again. You've got blood flow back to the brain. You've got oxygen back to the front of the brain. When you've got low oxygen and low blood flow at the front of the brain, which happens in a trauma, in an acute situation, in those sudden things, it drops. Then you are impulsive. You're going to make bad decisions. You're going to react incorrectly. You're going to create incoherence. Your alpha wave in the brain drops and becomes more active on the right side. And that's on the right side, which is not great because that means that we're now not going to have insight. So by doing what I've just said, you change all of that. You bring back coherence, you increase alpha, and it may not be excellent yet, but you've started the process. Then as you move forward through the 5 steps, and I put all this brain stuff in the book and what happens, and so I'm just giving you the overview. So then you start now reflecting, okay, what have I got in my basket? So number 2, reflect. Reflect is an incredibly beautiful word, as is gather awareness. Gathering awareness, I just want to point out, earlier on I said that we mustn't be frightened of despair and anxiety and trauma and the anxiety, depression, those scary. Don't be scared of them because they are messengers. They're helpful messengers that are telling you something. And if you respond to them in that way, you then control them. But if you respond to them in fear, they control you.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're not going to move forward. You're going to get very stuck. And then stuck in rumination and the patterns will just get worse. So get the control. Even though you can be crying, screaming, swearing, I don't care what you're doing, but just get the control. You're at the tree, you're doing the stuff. So gather. Reflect is, when you think of light going through a prism, it reflects all the colors of the rainbow. So there's depth. There's that one thing means a lot. And so reflect is this process of being a detective. Okay, well, why am I having that reaction? Now, when it's something in the moment, we pretty much know why. I knew why I was. So I didn't have to do too much reflection, but I had to, the reflection in terms of why, because I knew the cause. But the difference was I needed to reflect to say, okay, if I react like this is going to happen. Right. So it was questioning, what are you doing with that emotion? What are you doing with that behavior? Is that behavior helping? So the reflect in that situation would be different to a reflect for someone who is having a complete and utter imposter syndrome attack. And it's a pattern, and they keep doing it. So they're now working sequentially through the process. So they're going to have to start finding why. What does it track back to? What level? What sort of self-esteem issues are? What is the origin story of it? So that the reflect in that case would be, ask, answer, discuss. Why do I feel this? Why? And so it's a different. So but reflect is to just get meaning, but in a very comprehensive way, because there's all these patterns of meaning. In that acute trauma, it's quick. I'm doing the 5 steps quick. If I'm working on a pattern over time, I'm going to spend longer. Third step is you write. And the writing step is, obviously I was in the midst of a trauma, I couldn't write, so I would visualize. So the quick stuff you can just visualize, or if you can write. Writing, I recommend, if you write in the form of a metacog. I teach you how in the book, and I have a video of a Neuro Cycle app that goes with this.
What's a metacog?
A metacog is a pattern form of writing that stimulates. It looks like a tree. You start in the middle and you work on branches and you put words, and you don't write whole sentences. You basically just pour information and you literally let it just come out in this pattern format. But one of the key things is to group as something comes up, you put it on one area, and as something else comes up, you put it wherever. So you have these clusters of information, and every word's on a line, and every line goes out of the previous line. And that format is unbelievable. It just drags the two sides of the brain together, digs deep, and you start getting insight into what you didn't even know was there. And then the fourth step is to then go and sort out that chaos that you've just written down. So the fourth step is to, I've gathered awareness, I've reflected, I'm writing. What does this mean? What's the mental autopsy? What's the pattern, the activators, the antidotes? How can I reconceptualize this? Beautiful word, reconceptualize. And then you end off the cycle with a little action. And that action, if it's in the moment, like in that 5 seconds or whatever, it's okay, I'm going to actually take a deep breath and I'm going to act like this, or I'm going to say that, or I'm going to do this. So it's a little action that anchors you back in a state where you can function in the next moment, in that acute trauma or in that imposter moment and imposter syndrome moment, and you've now got to go and into a business meeting, you're feeling like you can't because you're in the imposter syndrome fraud sort of setup. So in doing it in the quick moment by moment, you're going to have a simple quick action. In the big stuff where you're working out the pattern, each day you do your work for a limited amount of time. And I say do the work because it's not a quick fix. If you're looking for a quick fix, nothing related to greatness is a quick fix or mind.
Right.
It's time, and you know that you experience that with your whole story. And so essentially you would do it for around 15 to 45 minutes a day when you're fixing up the big stuff. And you would do it, Lewis, the big stuff you would do for 63 days. So that's key.
Why 63?
Glad you asked that. So we've all been told 21 days to build a habit. Well, that's a complete myth. I wrote about it in the book too. It's not a neurosurgeon, a surgeon many years ago was talking about the physical cycles of healing that our body goes through. Like if you get a blister, it takes about 3 weeks for the stem cells and everything to form and the immune system to do its job to get rid of the blister. That's assuming that your mind's not a mess. If your mind's a mess, you can chop off 60% of that healing time. It'll take 60% longer.
Wow.
Up to 60% longer. If your mind's a mess, you increase healing.
If your mind is right, it decrease
it does it
the
on time. It does it on time. But sometimes and sooner. It depends. It depends on the level of damage. Sometimes you'll need 1 cycle of 3. Sometimes you'll need multiple. That's for physical healing. Mind healing, however, needs a minimum of 3 cycles for behavior change.
Really? How do we? Is this scientifically proven, or is this?
So there's very little research in the 21-day myth. So I decided to research it, and there's a few studies. There's one from University College London. I put them in my book. There's my one that I've just done recently in 2019, over 2020, where I tracked in the brain what happens. So 21 days, you get what we call gamma peaks, which means that you've taken this, you've deconstructed it, and you've reconstructed it into something healthy. So you've changed this thought, but it's XY. So that's in there, but it's in a different. It looks different. It's like if you take an ugly old house that you're going to renovate, you take lots of photos of all the mold and all the ugly carpets, and you bash it down, you build a beautiful new house. You still remember how it was, but you've reconceptualized it. You're living in that new space. You remember the old. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about. That takes 21 days. So you break down and build a thought with memories, because a thought is a tree made of memories. Memories are like a tree's made of branches, thoughts are made of memories. So to make something that's got a level of sustainability takes about 21 days. And in that 21 days, after that, if you stop there, it's a tiny little plant in your forest. It doesn't have enough energy to move from the non-conscious mind, N-O-N. The non-conscious mind operates 24/7. It's where all your experiences are stored in thoughts, all your belief systems, your nurturing, everything about you. And that is influencing your conscious mind. Conscious mind's only awake when you're awake. So right now, as I'm talking, everything that I'm saying is stimulating thoughts from your non-conscious mind to move into your conscious mind to make sense of what I'm saying and to build all this new stuff into thoughts in your trees. So a non-conscious mind, for a thought to move from the non-conscious to the conscious through the subconscious. So non-conscious, subconscious is the bridge, conscious is when you're awake. Non-conscious, 24/7, infinite, huge, massive, and where our wisdom is as well. So the wisdom is through the middle. If you want to imagine a forest, you've got the beautiful dark green strip, which is all your instinctive wisdom, survival stuff, wired for love stuff, optimism, bias, and then everything we experience in life is around the edge. Little trees, big trees, dark trees, green trees. The smaller the tree, the newer the experience, or the newer the memory, the weaker the memory. The big established trees are the ones that influence. So those things are powerful. So if it's a big dark tree and it's influencing, it's going to jump into your conscious mind and influence your view. So backtracking to get something that's good that you've rebuilt to actually influence how you view something, it has to have more energy put into it. Energy is never lost, energy is transferred. Quantum physics talks about energy. These things are proteins with energy vibrating in the little protein structures. So you want that they're weak, so you've got to strengthen.
You got to water it. You got to feed it some fertilizer.
Totally. And all you do is, it's so easy. Oh my gosh, it's so easy. From day 22 to 40 to 63, you simply do step number 5 for about a minute a day. That's how simple it is. It's 42 minutes over 42 days. In my Neuro Cycle app, I've actually got an active reminder function that you can type it in, so it pops up on your phone, and you can remind yourself to do this. And you literally just read it, and it keeps just reading it reminds you to do it, and then you're building your strength and you're turning it into behavior change. So to go around, the theme of your podcast, to get to greatness requires behavior change. So real behavior change, if you really want to build a good habit into your life, you're going to have to spend the 63 days doing it. So not only is that 63 days, I've shown it scientifically and so on, not only is it for detoxing the patterns, the traumas, the toxic habits, the small t, big T, as you mentioned, the acute stuff, the bad habits we've developed, but it's also to build new habits. So if you identify this is an area that I want to grow in my life to go to the next level of greatness, whatever that is, you need 63 days at least, and sometimes more. Sometimes the trauma is so embedded and it's blocking your greatness that you might need multiple cycles of 63. There's no cookie cutter design. But the more you do that and the more you practice it in the moment by moment, the more self-regulated you become, which brings us right back to the beginning of the conversation, which was that mind is always in action. So you may as well control it. So here I've just told you how to do it. It's pretty much.
Wow. If you're looking for more greatness in your life, make sure to check out this video right here. And also check out our free PDF, The 3 Secrets to Unlock the Power of Your Mind to help you change your life. Download it right here.
We're all faced with great opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. And we are at that point, at that nexus point